Perek Mem. We've finally reached Sefer Shmois. The way Perek Eliezer sort of does Sefer Shmois is like a little bit counterintuitive, somewhat out of order, but this is what it does. Basically, Perek Mem picks up the story of Moshe Rabbeinu's life from when he ran away from Mitzrayim until he's sent to go meet Paro. That's Perek Mem. The beginning of Moshe's life, like when he's born or whatever, we already saw that in Perek Mem Ches, so that's like it's out of order. Then Mem Aleph is going to be about Matan Torah, which we already did also. Mem Beis is about Kriyas Yamsuf, which we did. Mem Gimel is a continuation of Kriyas Yamsuf, really it's about Tshuva in general. That's like about Paro doing Tshuva by Kriyas Yamsuf, and then other things about Tshuva, that's Mem Gimel. Perek Mem Dal is about Amalek. Mem Hey and Mem Vav is about the story of the Cheda Egel and the Kapara of Yom Kippurim, and then Perek Mem Zayin starts talking about the story of Pinchas and Zimri, etc. And then Mem Ches goes back to like the idea of Yetzias Mitzrayim in general, and then Mem Tes and Nun is about Purim, etc. So it sort of jumps around. So okay, Perek Mem. Yeridah HaChamishis. So we're up to the fifth Yeridah. The fifth, we started this theme of the Yeridahs in Perek Yudalid, that we see that 10 times in the Chumash it says that Hashem came down, and we're understanding that those 10 times were times that Hashem came down to this world and very actively played an important role in the flow of history. So what's this fifth time? What's the fifth time? The fifth time that Hashem came down, She Yered L'Sneh. Hashem came down to the Sneh, to the burning bush, to the bush. It says in the pasuk, "Vo'ered lahatzilei miyad Mitzrayim." Hashem said, "I'm going to come down to save the Jews from Mitzrayim." So where does that Hashem came down? He came down to the Sneh. And what's the significance of Hashem coming down to the Sneh? So really, this has to do with what we spoke about in the previous parak. That Hashem said that He's going to come down to Mitzrayim with the Jews and come up with them, right? I'm going to come up go down with you and come up with you. Hashem rejected, or he left down the rest of the mountain, and he specifically chose to go down into the sneh, into the bush, and he rested the Shechina on the sneh. Vasneh tzara v'tzukah. A sneh is narrow and hard. And the sneh is basically made up of thorns and thistles. Why did Hashem rest the Shechina specifically in a place that's narrow and hard? Why did He specifically choose to rest the Shechina on thorns and thistles? The Shechina, deserves better cover than that. Why did Hashem do that? Rather, the reason is because Hashem saw that the Jews were in great distress. So therefore, Hashem decided that He too will dwell with them in their tzara. Klal Yisrael is in tzara, so the Shechina is also in tzara. The Shechina kibiyachol goes into the same tzara as Klal Yisrael, and because Klal Yisrael is in a narrow place and a hard situation, so Hashem also kibiyachol put the Shechina in such a place to symbolize the fact that Klal Yisrael is in Makom Tzar, and Hashem is with us in that Makom Tzar. The Kayam Mashinamar, in order to fulfill what it says in the pasuk, B'chol tzor esam leitzar. In every B'chol tzor esam leitzar, this is a very important pasuk. This week, this Shabbos, we start the 7 haftarahs of Nachamu. Right? This Shav de Nechemta, the 7 haftarahs of Nachama. Right? Pashas Bo'aschanan starts, the haftarah starts Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, etc. For 7 weeks, we speak on that theme. The last pasuk of the last one of these haftarahs is this pasuk over here. In every time they have tzara, whenever Klal Yisrael is in tzara, lo tzar, to him, to Hashem is tzar. Umalach panav ha'yishiyim, and Hashem is going to send a malach to save them. Be'avasoy v'chamlasoy hu ge'aleim, with his ava, with his love and with his pity, he's going to redeem them. Vayitnaleim vaynaseim ad ha'olam, and he's going to lift them up and take them. He's going to take them and lift them up forever. That's the last pasuk of the last haftarah of these 7 haftarahs. It's the Haftarah Parshas or Nitzavim or Nitzavim Vayelech, depending on the year, of Sois Osis. That's this pasuk. B'chol tzar some leitzar. The Radal says in other Mukaris, other Midrashim, when it brings this idea, it brings a different pasuk of Ima Yonechi B'tzara. Another famous pasuk that Hashem says, I am with them in their tzara. That's the reason why Hashem Dafka put the Shekhinah into the Sneh, which is a constricted place, to show that the Shekhinah is Kibiyachal in the same tzar as Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Levi says, Hamata shenivra ben hashmashos, the stick, the staff that was created ben hashmashos. Oh, yeah?
Oh, no. I want to ask on. Okay.
Yeah, what?
Ben hashmashos is Erev Shabbos, after the 6th day?
Pashtus.
We saw that, right?
We spoke about in Parak Yud Tes, we spoke about what, no, not Parak Yud Tes, and I don't remember which Parak. We spoke about what exactly it means Ben Hashmashos when it says the 10 things were created Ben Hashmashos. Pashtus means Ben Hashmashos between Friday and Shabbos. We said one of the Mefarshim, the grandson of the Rambam, has a Pirush on Mishnayos, who says that each thing was created in the Ben Hashmashos of the day, that it would be connected to that day. But the Pashtus is that it was Ben Hashmashos between Friday and Shabbos. So that stick that was created Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmashos, right? That happens to be that Erev Shabbos Ben Hashmashos was also the same time that what else happened? That was when Adam Rishon got kicked out of Gan Eden. In Parak Yud Tes, we did see in Parak Yud Tes the timeline of what happened to Adam Rishon on the day that he was created, and we said at the end of the day, that's when he got kicked out of Gan Eden for the Aver that he did. So that stick was created sort of the same time that Adam Rishon got kicked out of Gan Eden. And in fact, the Yalkut Shemini brings V'Shem a medrash called Divrei Hayamim Shel Moshe Rabbeinu, the Chronicles of Moses. It's a somewhat controversial work, but the Yalkut Shemini does hold of it. And also Sefer Yashar also brings this idea that when Hashem kicked Adam Rishon out of Gan Eden, so He gave him this stick, and Adam Rishon used that stick to work the land. That was like kilo. I don't want to say the words, but like kilo magic stick that was like that helped him out in his.
That's one of the weird observations, is that all the plagues almost all the plagues were used with the stick.
Oh.
Everybody could have thought it's magic.
Right.
But really, we are told, the Torah says it was that.
Not all the plagues, but the first
all.
few, yeah. Yeah. So that stick that was created Erev Shabbos ben Hashmashos, Nimsar L'Adam Rishon, Began Eden. It was given over to Adam Rishon in Gan Eden. There's another girsa of Mi Gan Eden. That Rabbi Leomei Israel has a girsa of Mi Gan Eden. As he was leaving, as he was getting kicked out of Gan Eden. V'Adam Misarai L'Chanoich. Adam Rishon gave over this stick Chanoich. V'Chanoich Misarai L'Noach. And Chanoich gave over this stick to Noach. A little bit of a problem. We spoke about this idea in Perek Ches. It's problematic because Chanoich died before Noach was born. So you have to add in another person in between. Chanoich gave it to Mr. Shelach, who gave it to Noach. That the Marzuz says that over here, and we spoke about that previously in Perek Ches. V'Noach Misarai l'Shem. Noach gave it to Shem. Shem Misarai l'Avram. Shem gave it to Avram. Avram Misarai l'Yitzchak. Avram gave it to Yitzchak. Yitzchak Misarai l'Yaakov. Yitzchak Avinu gave it to Yaakov. Right? That's the stick. V'Yaakov Yeridah l'Mitzrayim. Yaakov Avinu took the stick and he brought it down with him to Mitzrayim. U'Misarai l'Yosef b'nai. And he gave it over to his son Yosef. Uchashemes Yosef, and when Yosef died, Nishlal kol beisai v'nitan v'palchin nishal parai. His entire house was looted, and they took all the stuff that was in his house and they put it in Paro's palace. Or not Nishal Nilkach, Stam was taken, not necessarily looted, but it was taken. Fine, and it was given up. Basically, it went into Paro's possession. Now, there's sort of two girsais over here of what happens next. We'll read it with the preferred girsa of most of the Mefarshim. This is the Radal and the Marzu basically go like this mahal, and also the Bais Gadol. V'haya Yisro echad mechartumei Mitzrayim. Yisro was one of the magicians of Egypt. V'roa es hamata v'es oisos asher alav. And Yisro saw the stick and the oisos that were upon it. We'll have to speak about what these oisos that were upon it are. And Yisro saw that stick, and the oisos. See, the word ois can mean one of two things. It can mean a letter, and it can mean a sign. So either the letters or the signs that were on this stick, and he desired them in his heart. And he took the stick, and he brought it, and he planted it in the garden of his house. Skip the next 5 words. And nobody else was able to approach that stick. It was planted firmly in Yisro's garden. That's the first girsa. The second girsa says no. It says that Paro saw the stick and wanted the stick and desired it, and he took it, and Paro planted it in the garden of Yisro, which is a bit problematic. Like, okay, so it says, Paro was a magician. It says Paro was the magician, because that's a Gemara Ma'ikot. In other places, Paro Amgushi Haya, he was a magi, a magician. Right? Paro was a magician, and he saw the stick, recognized that it was significant. Even in the first Gersa, Yisro somehow recognized that it had some sort of significance. But then the second part is like a little bit difficult. And then Paro took it and he planted it in Yisro's garden. So why did if he took it because he desired it? So then why did he put it in Yisro's garden? So Biliam Izmir says that like Paro saw the stick and he somehow was able to understand through his sorcery and witchcraft or whatever that this stick somehow has to do with Paro's downfall and the Jews being able to leave Egypt, and he saw the stick, he wanted it because he wanted it to be in his possession, under his control, that he would be able to control what would happen in the future, that no one will be able to defeat him. So he gave it over to Yisro because Yisro was like his trusty advisor, and he told Yisro to put it in your garden and keep it under check and make sure nothing happens to it. Like make sure that, because he realized whoever gets this stick, will have the power to overpower Egypt.
Why does it say V'chomer Doisam?
V'chomer Doisam B'liboy. He desired them in his heart.
Hem.
He desired
Osos maybe?
them.
Yeah, it's referring to Osos.
But wait, I have another.
Yeah, but Osos are incarved into the, what's it called?
To the sign. Yeah.
It says Oto. I have a.
You have Osa? Oh really?
Oh, really?
Oh, that makes more. It could be to make more sense.
Oto.
V'chomer Osa.
Yeah, well, then who said that?
Nobody.
Someone important has to say that. You're just check the person. Yeah, if you're seeing the right thing. Yeah, of course, it makes sense, but the most important thing is to know who says that.
Right.
This is the Gra, take it. Not the show. Everyone.
So what are these signs on the stick? So I'm sure we're probably familiar with a few different ideas that have to do with the signs on the stick.
Hamza.
What? Yeah, right.
Start big.
I just held myself back from saying something else.
Really?
What?
You're holding yourself back and saying something else?
Yeah. No, in response to what you what you said.
Okay, that's fine.
Whatever, it's not for you.
Oh.
Anyways, okay, so there's different explanations. I just quickly jotted this down. The different explanations of what was written on the stick. The most common explanation is that it says that Detzach Hadash Ba'achav, which is the 10 plagues in Egypt, but the acronyms for them. Another explanation says that no, it was the actual names of the 10 plagues. It said Dam, Sardea, Kirim, Orv, Dever, etc. There's a famous Gaon in his Pirush on the Haggadah Shel Pesach that the Gaon wants to say that it's a bachloikis, because it says these are the 10 makas, Dam, Sardea, etc. And then it says Rabbi Yehuda, Neisim, Simonim, Tzach Hadash Ba'achav. So the Gaon wants to say that according it's Machlekes Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda. According to the Tanakama, Moshe Rabbeinu's stick said the names of all 10. According to Rabbi Yehuda, no, it only said that those 3 words, that Tzach Hadash Ba'achav is Rosh Tevis. That's the Gaon's pshat.
Wait a minute. Why would it say the 10 plagues? The stick was also used for Am Yisrael for water.
No, Chanami.
No, but I thought it was going to say this. It would say the Shem of Hashem.
Oh, so other Mefarshim said it had the Shem Havaya, Shem of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Rabbeinu Bechai says they had the 72-letter name of Hashem. Other Mefarshim said it had the Shem Havaya, Shem of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Rabbeinu Bechai says they had the 72-letter name of Hashem. Rabbeinu Bechai says they had the 72-letter name of Hashem. 72 letter name of Hashem. 72 letter name of Hashem. some of Hashem say had the Shem Hashem and the Makkos. And I guess you could say, like, is it the Makkos or is it the Tzachadash Bachab? So that will be more pshatim. And then Targum Yonasan says that it has the most amount of things. It says it has a Shem Mefurish and the 10 Makkos and the 3 Avos and the 6 Imohis and the 12 Shvatim. All of that was written on the stick. So what are these Oisais? It's not clear exactly if they're letters, if they're words, if they're signs. Ois can mean signs, like the plagues in Egypt are called Oisais. Oisais of a Maipsim.
That's the name of all the tribes. So why the Sukkah, will trouble to explain the names of each one of the sons? Because Leah has this, so the name is like this. Because Rachel was thinking of this, and so the name is
No, I don't know. I don't know if that's such a difficult question. Al Kapanim. So Sefer Yosher brings down, and it seems that Pirkei Debelezer, either it's based on Pirkei Debelezer, or they're coming from the same source, or they complement each other. Sefer Yosher brings down that Yisro had this stick planted in his garden, and he had this daughter to marry off. And he said that whoever comes and is so strong that he could pull this stick out of the ground, so he can marry my daughter.
So King Arthur came along and just.
So that's what
I. Book that was questioning that King Arthur's the whole story of King Arthur.
So this is what. So the story of the sword and the stone by King Arthur with Excalibur, yeah. So I looked on Wikipedia. The earliest source of this story is in the 1100s. The earliest of this story could have possibly been written is 1100s.
It's not even 1,000 years.
What?
It's not even 1,000 years.
And now, even if you want to be super academic and say that Pirkei Debelezer wasn't written by any Tanaim or Amoraim, it was written in the Goinim, right? And the earliest mention we have of Pirkei Debelezer in other sources is in the 800s. It still predates King Arthur by like 400 years. So who took from whom?
The guy I just read the book suggested that.
Who's the guy?
Rabbi Israel Miller.
Yeah.
From Pittsburgh, and then now he's in Calgary. An ArtScroll book. Wrote a book on a whole bunch of questions. Anyways, he says Jewish people were around.
It's ArtScroll or it's Mosaica?
It's Mosaica. I'm saying he wrote other books for ArtScroll, but at this point it's Mosaica.
Yeah, I saw that book, I think.
It's a very nice book. The questions you didn't ask here of Rebbe. So they asked Jews the stories, so Jews back then, they knew.
We've spoken about in the past that parts of the Quran were based on Pirkei Debelezer.
His other reason, though, he says, could be that in Torah, everything is an essence. Everything is an ikr. There's an ikr thing about life in every story in Torah. Every story.
Yeah.
He says it could be the Goyim struck it. The Goyim also, at some point, they're going to come upon an ikr of life, and they're going to tell not the exact same story, but a similar story. Because the sword and the stone, there may be an ikr there that Hashem wanted to convey to us through Rabbi Eliezer. And the Goyim, they
you have to say something. We spoke about it before. In the Babylonian mythology, they had the same thing as the story in the Epic of Gilgamesh. It has more or less the same thing as the story of Noach, of the Mabul.
George Lucas was learning Yerushalmi before he created Master Yoda.
George Lucas?
That's different.
Even though that's a lot of Torah.
Yerushalmi doesn't say Rabbi Yehuda, it says Rabbi Yoda. Like it doesn't have a hey. So you could read Yoda or Yehuda, whatever you want.
Yeah, and the name of the planet in The Empire Strikes Back is called Yavin 4. Yavin. There's and in Return of the Jedi they named the planet as Ein Dor, which is the name of the place where Shaul HaMelech went to consult with the what's it called, Balas Oiv. Ein Dor, that's the name of the place. Endor. Okay, George Lucas also learned Tanakh. I don't know.
He's a Goy, right?
No.
George Lucas? I think so.
Spielberg's a Jew.
Yeah.
His mother owns a kosher restaurant in Los Angeles.
Is it good?
Yeah.
But the guy who wrote the music for Star Wars was Jewish. What's his name?
John Williams?
No, not John. The guy who wrote the music for Star Trek was Jewish. Jerry Goldsmith. Sounds Jewish.
If you have to guess who did something in Hollywood, You could buy a Jew.
He was either Jewish or married to a Jew. Anyways, fine. So yeah, I actually wanted to speak about King Arthur and Excalibur, and this is what I came out. That it was written. It was that story was from the 1100s, and this is clearly predates it.
My neighbor, I'm going to talk to him, but he has a list of Goyish stories from the Grimm brothers, from all sorts of places that we know that he's.
I think they're called the Brothers Grimm.
The Brothers Grimm, whatever.
Yeah.
That's the name of the book, maybe. They were.
Yeah.
I don't know. He has a list where he compiled himself, because he knows all these stories. A lot of the sources are just from Tanakh.
Yeah.
And Midrash and Gemara.
Rip Van Winkle. We say Rip Van Winkle's Chayni Ama'agel.
He's the one, I think Cinderella may have, or maybe a story that they changed a little bit, stuff like that. So there's a lot of sources come from.
Yes, Cinderella, like Yosef. His brothers were sort of. No, not exactly. Alright, let's go weiter. When Moshe Rabbeinu came to the house of Yisro, he went into the garden of Yisro's house, and he saw the stick, and he read either the words or the signs that were on the stick. He sent forth his hand, and he took it, and he was able to take it. Yisro as Moshe, and Yisro saw Moshe, and he said, this person is destined to redeem the Jews from Egypt. Therefore, Yisro gave his daughter Tzipora to Moshe Rabbeinu. It says in the pasuk, Moshe agreed to settle with the man, and he gave his daughter Tzipora to Moshe. Fine. There's an interesting point over here that the Radal makes. I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything. Yeah, the interesting point that the Radal makes is that in the pasuk it says "Vayitenes Tzipora bitay l'Moshe." It just says that he gave his daughter Tzipora to Moshe. It doesn't say he gave it to her. He gave her to him as a wife. Here in the Medrash it says "Nasan le Tzipora bitay leisha," as a wife. So Radal says, why in the pasuk does it not say as a wife, and over here it does say as a wife? So I'm not so bothered by it, but the Radal is bothered by it, and he asks it as a question. So he says two answers. The first answer is a Geshmak Chiddush. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin that says that Timnah was a daughter of a Horite princess. The Horites were the aboriginal inhabitants of Har Seir before Esav came, and she decided that she wants to go and be a Pelegish to the family of Esav. She said it's better to be a Pelegish to the family of Avram Avinu, even after they rejected her converting, whatever, than to be a princess in what's it called, in the royal family of a Gentile nation, right? That's the story of Timnah. So Radal wants to say over here, and the same thing was a similar thing with Hagar. The Hagar was the daughter of Paro, and she decided it's better to be a secondary wife of Avram Avinu than to be a princess in Egypt. So Radal wants to say that over here it's the same thing, that Yisro saw such a great future for Moshe Rabbeinu that he decided that it would be better for my daughter Tzipora to be married to this guy, not necessarily even as a wife, even as a Pelegesh. It'd be better for her to be married to him than to be, than to remain here. Who am I? I'm just a Pashut, a priest or whatever. Better to marry Moshe Rabbeinu, even if you're not going to be his main wife, you'll be a secondary wife. But in the end, Moshe Rabbeinu took her as a wife. The Medrash is saying that he took her as a wife. But when Yisro gave her, it wasn't necessarily Leisha. But when Moshe Rabbeinu took her, it was Leisha. That's one pshat the Radal says. And then the second pshat, probably is more al derech pshat, is that the reason it doesn't say that he gave her as a leisha is because at the end of the day, Moshe Rabbeinu and Tzipora got divorced. So the Torah didn't want to say that like leisha as if it was saying like they continued to be married. Like the marriage wasn't necessarily so long lasting; it was short lived. Fine. Moshe Rabbeinu shepherded the sheep of Yisro for 40 years. There's a medrash that says that there's a few places this medrash is brought. In Sifri and Parshas V'zayis Bracha in Bereshis Rabbah, it says like this. It says Moshe Rabbeinu lived for 120 years. So 120 divided by 40, you can have 3 segments of 40 years. So Medrash says, for the first 40 years, Moshe Rabbeinu lived in Egypt. For the next 40 years, he lived in the desert watching Yisro's sheep. And yeah. And so that's when he was 80. And then for the last 40 years, till he was 100, from when he was 80 till he was 120, that's when he led Klal Yisrael. That's what the Medrash says. So the Radah, puts that together with what we're saying here in Pikad Eliezer, that Moshe Rabbeinu watched Yisro's sheep for 40 years. There's an interesting Medrash that you guys may or may not be familiar with in what I mentioned before, the controversial Sefer Divrei Yamim Shel Moshe Rabbeinu. It says over there, and also it's in Sefer Yashar, that Moshe Rabbeinu became a king in Ethiopia for 40 years. It's a whole long story where he ended up saving the country, and the king died, and he married his wife, and he took over. It's like a whole long convoluted story. In general, the Ibn Ezra is one of the people who's against this Sefer Divrei Yamim Moshe Rabbeinu. Ibn Ezra says we don't believe that Sefer. But the Ashkenazi Rishonim, they quote from it. Whether we're talking about the Rekeach, whether we're talking about the Rashbam, that's Rashi's grandson, they bring from the Sefer Divrei Yamim Moshe Rabbeinu. But Pirkei Eliezer says not like that, because Pirkei Eliezer says he watched Yisro's sheep for 40 years. It doesn't say that he was king in Africa for 40 years. Okay, it could be, there are ways you could sort of put it together, but the Pashtus is the Pirkei Eliezer doesn't go like that. The Bais HaGadol points out that when the Yalkut Shimoni brings down this Pirkei Eliezer, so it says that he watched Yisro's sheep with that stick. He used that stick to be successful in watching Yisro's sheep. And a wild animal of the field did not be mishakel any of the sheep of Yisro. It didn't make them childless. It didn't kill any of the sheep. He was able to successfully protect them. And Yisro's sheep were very fruitful and multiplied very much so. He was very successful. And about Yisro's sheep, the Torah says, or the Navi says, Kisain Kodashim, like holy sheep. Fine. And Moshe, I guess this is now sort of getting into the story of the sneh. Moshe Rabbeinu led the sheep, I guess like one day, once upon a time, Moshe Rabbeinu led the sheep until he got to Chayrev. Till the Chayrev is Har Sinai. It says in the pasuk of he led the sheep past the wilderness. And over there Hashem revealed himself from the bush. It says in the pasuk, Vayera malach Hashem elov belabas eish mitechasna. A malach of Hashem, an angel of Hashem appeared to him in a form of a fire inside the sneh, inside the bush. V'ra Moshe es ha'eish mitechasna. And Moshe Rabbeinu saw the fire inside the bush, and he saw something very wondrous. There was a fire in the bush, and the fire was not consuming the bush. It was on fire, but it wasn't getting burnt up. On one hand, and on the other hand, the bush wasn't extinguishing the flames of the fire. Because a sneh is a type of a bush which doesn't grow on the land unless there's a lot of water. It can only grow in a very moist area, and this type of bush needs a lot of water in order to grow. So it's a very moist bush. So now, if it's holding a lot of water in it, then you would think that either the fire is going to completely burn it out, or the water that's inside the sneh is going to take out the fire. But what happened instead? The two things continued to coexist as if there was no steer between the water and the fire. Water and fire usually don't go together, but here the water and fire were coexisting. And Moshe Rabbeinu saw it, and he was astonished or wondering in his heart very much so. Omar, he said, Man Yikoro Islay Begavei. I guess Moshe Rabbeinu spoke Aramaic. He said, "Man yikara isle begave." What honor is inside over here? There's two ways to explain it like this. The Radal says like this: the Moshe Rabbeinu saw this great, awesome sight, and it's like, wow, what an honorable sight! Like, what an amazing thing! Like, what am I seeing over here? This very amazing, honorable sight that Hashem is showing. I guess Hashem is showing me, or I see that I get to see this honorable sight. The Marzul, it seems, maybe had a different girsa, which I couldn't substantiate from the manuscripts, but the Marzul understands it as Man Yikara Isli Bigave. What honor do I have inside me? Why was I zeicha to get to see such a thing? Yeah. Why did I deserve to see such an interesting, wondrous sight? Yeah. What honor do I have? Well, you have that?
I have. I want to see what you said. I don't know if you're reading it incorrect.
What?
I have Man Yikara is La Vigava. Lo Vigave.
Bigava. Okay. It could be that's probably. The Marzul also has that. The Marzul also has that. Two vavs. Yeah, two vavs. The Marzul also has that. We have a vav, Beis Gimel Vav Yud Hey.
It makes more sense to La Begava.
Right, because Sneh is Lashon Nekeva. Yeah.
In it. So, but according to the other explanation is.
You know what? Maybe the Marzul means that Moshe Rabbeinu is sort of like referring to himself in third person. What does that man have inside him? Meaning, like, what do I have inside me that I deserve to see this? Right there.
Or the question is, what does the sneh have?
Right. That's the pashtus is what great thing is inside this sneh that I'm seeing over here.
Or simply,
yeah.
Why is that thing so special?
Why is the thing so special?
Yeah,
that I'm saying that's the Pashup shot. Yeah, why? What's so special in this thing? And then it goes into the lashon of the pasuk. Asura na ve'ereh. I'm going to now turn around ve'ereh, and I'm going to see. I will see esamara hagadol hazeb. This great sight. Madua lo yivarasna. Why is the sneh? Why is the bush not being consumed? Mefarshim are sort of bothered by we said he had two problems. Why is the fire not consuming the sneh, and why is the water inside the sneh not taking out the fire? The pasuk only focuses on the first one. Mefarshim said because that's like the biggest chiddush. Usually that's what fire does. You can say, okay, something is moist and it's not extinguishing the fire. That's not so difficult. But to say that there's a fire burning and it's not burning the thing out, that's more difficult. Rabbi Leomi Israel has a shtickle drush over here. He says that the idea is that Hashem was trying to show. Why did Hashem show this with a fire and water or whatever? So it says that Hashem wanted to show Moshe Rabbeinu that fire and water could coexist. It says Torah is nimshal to fire and Torah is nimshal to water. Like haloi koi dvarai keish. Pasuk in Yirmiyah Chav Gimel Chav Tes. Torah is like fire, and then there's another pasuk in Yeshaya Perak Nun Hey, Hoi Kol Tzomo L'Chula Mayim. Come everyone who's thirsty, go to the water. The Torah is like water, and the Torah is like Eish. So how does that coexist? How can it be both? So Rabbi Leomi.
It's also an eight. Sneh and eight.
Yeah. So Rabbi Leomi Israel says that Hashem is trying to teach Moshe Rabbeinu that that's the way the Torah is. You have to have fire and water together. What's fire and water? It says fire and water is Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh. He doesn't explain himself. He says that Torah Shebechsav is water, Torah Shebal Peh is fire. And you have to, in order for it to be successful, you have to have both of them together. They don't contradict each other. They go together like, it says like a man and a wife, which are two opposites, but in order to continue forth, you need to work with both of them together. So it says that you need the same thing over here. Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh together in order to be successful. So I was just thinking like, we see this idea that Torah Shebechsav, you could say is like water, because there's a difference between water and fire. If you have water, like, okay, I take a cup of water, yeah, so I have my cup of water, and here it is. It's in the cup. It's right there. It's not moving. It's not it's right there. That it is what it is. Fire, on the other hand, fire is always reaching out and growing and grabbing this. Now this is on fire. Now this is on fire. This is on fire, and it's spreading and it never stays stagnant. It's always like flickering and jumping. That's fire. So that represents Torah Sheba'al Peh. Because Torah Sheba'al Peh is always changing. It is always you can discuss more. You can take a new topic. It's not. It is what it is. There's always more and more to add to Torah Sheba'al Peh.
You affect people.
Yeah.
That's maybe when you're giving an example of touching things.
Yeah.
And it's not a grab, reaching out. That's what happens when you speak and we give a shiur. You touch the people when you touch the person and
Right.
you pass the Torah.
Pass the torch.
The torch.
Like he's from Brazil. They have the Olympics over there.
They had a torch.
Oh my goodness.
That wasn't part of the shir. I wasn't planning on talking about the Olympics. Amalai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem said to him, Moshe, Moses, Abayid al Amdecha, stand in your place. Shisham ani asid litanis Torah Yisrael, because in this place I'm going to give the Torah to Bnei Yisrael. Shenamar, it says in the pasuk, Al tikrav haloim, don't come closer. Shalni alecha me'al raglecha, remove your shoe from upon your foot. So you see, like Hashem's response to Moshe Rabbeinu is like, Moshe is like, what's up with this place? And Hashem's response is like, don't come too close. This is where the Torah is going to be given. They'll take off your shoes. So you see that it has to do with the giving of the Torah. So Rabbi Leo Me'izmir is sort of explaining like, what does the story of the Sneh have to do with the giving of the Torah? That Hashem was trying to convey this message to Moshe Rabbeinu, that Torah Shebachsav and Torah Sheba'al Peh go together. Al Kapanim, so Hashem said to him, take off your shoe. Shalni alecha me'al raglecha, take off your shoe from upon your foot. I remember this from 5th grade. Our Rebbe asked, we're learning Parsha Shmois. So our Rebbe asked, I don't understand. Why does it say, take off your shoe from upon your foot? Where else do you wear your shoe? So one of the boys in the class, this is in 5th grade. I wonder if the kid himself remembers this. 5th grade. The name of the boy was Itai Sudri. He came to class. I don't remember if it was the next day or the next week or whatever. He said his father showed him a Das Kenim. It says the Das Kenim asks his kasha, and the Das Kenim says because by Boaz it uses a lashon of Vayishlaf Noloy Me'al Yodoi. He took his shoe off of his hand, right, when he was making a kinyan in order to acquire Ruth, to make the deal that he was going to marry Ruth. So it says he took his naloy me'al yodoi off of his hand. What do you mean? He wore his shoes in his hand? No, the word nal, I guess in Lashon Tanakh, doesn't necessarily mean shoe. It just means something that like covers your hand. It means your glove. It means your shoe. It's an inclusive term that means all of that. So here I had to say, take your shoe, not your glove that's on your hand, but the shoe that's on your foot. I still remember that. I wonder if the kid remembers that. What?
Also, by the way, just now another question. It's in the singular.
Yeah.
Shal na alecha.
No, it's not in the singular.
Me'al raglecha.
Now, what? It's not singular. Look, there's a yud. Otherwise, it should say shal ne'olcha me'al raglecha.
Yeah. I hope so.
There's a yud. That yud ne'olacha tells you that it's in plural. From here, Chazal say, anyone who's standing in a holy place, he has to take off his shoe. Because so said Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu, take off your shoe from upon your foot. There's another, the Midrashim and other places where it brings this, the Medrash ends off, it says, and so too, the Kohanim, when they're in the Beis HaMikdash, they walk around barefoot. Because when you're in a holy place, you're supposed to not wear shoes. But the Radal says, and other Mefarshim speak this out, not other Mefarshim, but basically the Radal says this, that no, it doesn't mean in a holy place. Not every place that's holy are you not allowed to wear your shoes. Rather, what it means is a place where there's a Gilui Shechina, a revelation of Hashem's presence. There, you're not allowed to wear shoes. But in a holy place, of course, you're allowed to wear shoes. First of all, Haraya, Tesis in Mesachas Saita, everyone goes to shul. You go to shul every day, right? Yeah. Do you wear shoes when you go to shul? Yeah. How can you wear shoes? It's a holy place. Oh, so it's not din in a holy place. It's a din in Gilui Ashchina. Tesis in Saita Daf Mem Aleph brings a few proofs that you're allowed to wear shoes in the shul. First of all, the Gemara says that a kohen, when he goes up to do Birkas Kohanim, he has to take off his shoes. Well, if everyone's taking off their shoes, what's the chiddush that a kohen has to take off his shoes? That's one point Tesis says. Another point Tesis says is the Gemara Megillah that says that even the chazan is allowed to wear shoes. So you see that even when you're in shul, you're allowed to wear shoes. Even the chazan is allowed to wear shoes. Gemara Brachas says that just like in your house, what? Oh, not in the Beis Hamikdash. In the Beis Hamikdash, you're not allowed to wear shoes even in the Har HaBayis. People who go to the Har HaBayis, I hope they realize that you're not allowed to wear shoes when you go to the Har HaBayis. Because it's, call your brother-in-law. You're not allowed to wear shoes on the Har HaBayis. The Gemara says it.
Not Avin.
What?
Not Avin, I'm not talking about Avin.
Oh, but he also goes there.
No, he doesn't go.
He doesn't?
He's correct. He doesn't go. Oh, he's looking old.
His brother goes there.
Oh, the archaeologist. He's not from. He's from, no, he's not.
That's the whole point.
Anyways, no, it could be it's better to go to the Har HaBayis if you're not from than if you're from. Because if you're not from, you're tinik shnishba, you don't understand anything. If you're from, it could be it's chashash kares. What?
Is there a person on earth that goes there and they claim that was Furum?
Okay, so you don't know. Hashem, you don't know.
No. Yeah, it's a lie. I can call myself Furum and go there.
It's not true. It's not true.
It is true.
There are a lot.
They get very confused. They call themselves Furum and they go there.
Yes.
They're very confused.
Whatever. I don't want to talk about Har HaBayis now, but it's a whole sugya. There are a lot of people that go up there and whatever they have different things that they're saimach on and different mitziases that they think are true and whatever, but it's not recommended. Bottom line is it's not recommended. But the point is that the Medrash says, other Midrashim say that's why the Kohanim don't wear shoes when they're in the Beis Hamikdash. Wait, first of all, what do you mean that's why the Kohanim don't wear shoes in the Beis Hamikdash? Because they don't wear shoes, because no one wears shoes, even in the Har HaBayis, let alone doing a void in the Beis Hamikdash. It's a bizayon, you don't wear shoes. That's first of all. Second of all, as Radal also points out, there's another reason, even if we're not talking about shoes, literally shoes, let's say socks. Socks doesn't have a din of shoes, right? So could you walk on Har HaBayis with socks? Pashtus, yeah. You're allowed to, on Palia it's called, socks is called on Palia. You're allowed to wear socks in the Har HaBayis, right? But if you're kohen and you're doing a voida, there's another halacha that there can't be any hefsek, any interruption between your body and the ritzbah of the azara, the floor of the azara in the Beis Hamikdash. So for another technical reason, a kohen is not allowed to wear shoes or anything on his foot because his foot has to be touching the floor. Pashan halacha. So why so the Radal is asking, it can't be like what other Midrashim are saying is because it's a holy place. That's not the reason why the Kohanim take off their shoes. They take off their shoes. First of all, you don't wear shoes. The whole Har HaBayis you don't wear shoes, not because of Azara. And second of all, when they're doing avodah, they can't wear anything in between them and the floor. But so Hashem reveals Himself to Moshe Rabbeinu at the sneh. Amar Loi Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, L'cha ve'eshlachacha el Paroi. Go, and I will send you to Paro. Is the word l'cha spelled with a hey by you, Rabbi Pomerantz? Yeah, Amar L'Kadosh Baruch Hu. L'cha with a hey?
No.
Without a hey.
Yeah.
So in the.
I have a pasuk with a hey.
Oh, so yeah, that's I figured. I was mechaven to your footnote. In the pasuk, it's spelled l'cha, go with a hey. Over here in Pekah, for some reason it spells it without a hey. Go, and I will send you to Paro. Fine.
It's the same word.
Yeah, it's the same word. It's just with a hey, without a hey. That's how you spell it. Amar lefanov, Moshe Rabbeinu said in front of him, Rebbein kol ha'olam, master of the universes. Didn't I tell you this? These 4 words are problematic, as the Marzuz says. What do you? Didn't I tell you this? This is where he said it. It's not didn't I tell you that as if he said it before. He's saying it now. A, B, koyach. I don't have power. I don't have energy. I don't have the strength. Shani nifgam bilsheni, because I am blemished in my tongue or in my mouth. Shnamar, it says in the Pasuk, Moshe said to Hashem, Lo ish tvarim anechi, I'm not a man of words. I can't speak to Pharaoh. What do you want from me? And not only that, and also you're sending me into the hands of my enemies and the people who request bad of me. People are going to try to kill me. Didn't for this reason I run away from them? I ran away from Paro. Moshe ran away from Paro. So why are you sending me back to the people that want to kill me? And Radal says like, even though we say okay fine, but if Hashem sends you, so we say shluchi mitzvah inim nizoikin, people who are sent on a mission of a mitzvah, they won't get damaged. But the Gemara Pesachim says that ein sleim chanal anes. We don't rely on a nace in a situation where it's shchicha hazeka, where the nace, where the damage is something that's common, a common damage, a common danger. You can't rely on ein sleim chanal anes. You can't rely on a nace, right? So Moshe Rabbeinu is saying like, you're sending me, how can I go? Hashem said to him, don't be scared of them, because all the people that want to kill you, they all died. Now, the assumption is that those people were Dasan and Aviram. Right? The people that wanted to come when Dasan and Aviram dead, didn't Dasan and Aviram continue to live and they make trouble later on in the Midbar? Rather, they became less rich, and because they became less rich, they're tantamount as if they're dead. So that's what the puzzle says they're dead, but it doesn't really mean that they're dead. They just became less influential.
Why is it Dasan Aviram? Dasan Aviram, according to Rashi, were involved in the story.
Right.
But they didn't want to get. Pharaoh tried to kill.
No, but they're the ones who told Pharaoh that he killed the mitzvah.
That's not them wanting.
Okay, but that's his enemies.
They wanted his.
That's the assumption. It seems that's the assumption that Pirkei Eliezer makes. The Radal brings that there's a Gemara in the Dharm on Daf Samach Daled where Rabbi Eliezer and the Gemara over there understands that no, they literally died. Whoever was Moshe Rabbeinu's enemy actually literally died. So it wasn't talking about Paro, yeah, the paradigm. It's a new Paro.
It's a new Paro.
Right.
And some say it's still the same Paro, but he forgot.
Right.
We talked about that before also, didn't we? No.
That's a I don't remember. No, I think it's. I'm not sure.
Ask you something.
Oh, 1 second. So the Radal says that even though Rabbi Eliezer over there in the Gemara says that they literally died, so over here it's not a steer to Pirkei Eliezer because it says like sometimes we find like Stam Mishnah doesn't always have to go like Rabbi. So it's like Stam Pirkei Eliezer doesn't always have to go like Rabbi Eliezer. And the Medrash says Mikana Talamet should call Yeridah Menachasav Kilu Meis. Anyone who gets taken down from his from his possessions, he loses his wealth. It's as if he died. Therefore, it says in the pasuk that they died, but they didn't literally die. Yeah, what were you going to ask?
Remember, maybe we learned here in the past, thinking about removing the shoe was actually like just what is written in the pasuk, just like a grammatical explanation of what really happened. That Moshe Rabbeinu really took off his body. And the soul was revealed because it's the only. Did we learn here, or maybe I learned it from different sources?
Doesn't sound like the type of thing I would say.
And that's the only reason. That's the only way he could receive the whole Torah. That's what happened that day.
Yeah, there is such an idea. The Meshach Chachma speaks about in the beginning of Shmois that like because Moshe Rabbeinu's darga of Nevuah was on a higher darga than everyone else. Moshe Rabbeinu's words became Torah, not just Nevi'im. So it had to be that Moshe Rabbeinu was like less of a human than everyone else. Like Moshe Rabbeinu sort of became like a malach. There's a shaila, at what point did Moshe Rabbeinu get the level of Nevuas Moshe as opposed to every other Navi? They discuss this in the Ramban and by the Sneh. When did Moshe Rabbeinu become like the darga of Moshe Rabbeinu? When by the Sneh he was like a regular Navi, or he was already on a higher level than a regular Navi? That's the shaila basically.
That goes well with the Rochal that explains the body is just like a shoe or a sock compared to the Neshama. because the lowest part of the neshama is here, and covered by the shoe that's the body. So if we remove the shoe, it's actually removing the body and revealing the soul. So remember what I saw. I'll bring it out. So then the Sefer is called Don Olam.
Don Olam.
It's in English. It's in English.
Oh, I saw it.
It's the Rebbe from North America.
It's from like Bnei Brak or something?
No, it's from Neve Yaakov.
Zichron Yaakov.
Neve Yaakov.
Neve Yaakov. Well, what's his name?
Weiss?
I don't know.
No.
I saw it around the North America.
Could. I saw it in the book.
But what was the other point? You mentioned the Ramchal. The Ramchal, from what I remember, in Derech Hashem writes that every nevuah that Moshe Rabbeinu had was on the level of Aspaklaria HaMe'ira. That was like the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. All nevuahs that he had. I think it's somewhat controversial because, like as I said over here, by the Sneh, Mufarshim speak about was the darga of the nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu by the Sneh the same thing as the rest of the nevuahs of Moshe Rabbeinu, or was it like a lower level? He didn't get built up yet. Then I think it's a Maral in I don't remember where the Maral. It could be it's in the beginning of Devarim and Gur Aryeh, but it could be not. The Maral writes that when Moshe Rabbeinu got the nevuah of Sefer Devarim, so Sefer Devarim was a lower level of nevuah than the rest of the Torah. That in Sefer Devarim, Moshe Rabbeinu was like a regular navi as opposed to the darga of Moshe Rabbeinu. Which you have to know if he literally means that or he just means like vis-a-vis the rest of the Torah. That's already also getting into like difficult ideas. Because you could be getting into like borderline kfirah, because the Rambam says that one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim is you have to believe that the nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu is greater than every other navi, right? So now if
what does it mean by that? Though?
Whatever it means, but once you start playing with that, now it could be that like if you want to say that by the Sneh he wasn't on that level, so then maybe it's borderline apikoursis according to some explanations. So it's treading in dangerous territories. Let's go weiter. Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, go, and I'm going to send you to Paro. Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, Rebbein kol ha'olam, Master of the universes, shlach no bi'at tishlach. Don't send me. Shlach no bi'at tishlach. Please send the one who you're going to send. Bi'at oisoi ish ato asid l'shlach. Send through the hand of that man that you're going to send in the future. Send him. Don't send me. Send that person that you're going to send in the future. Who's that referring to? Says the Radal. It's referring to Eliyahu Navi, also aka Pinchas. And Pinchas was already born at this time. When the Jews were in Mitzrayim. And Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Hashem, don't send me to go to Paro. Don't send me. Send Pinchas. Send Eliyahu Navi instead. Not me. Send him. You'll see in the continuation of the Medrash, it's pretty explicit that we're talking about Eliyahu. But Targum Yonasan also says it straight out that Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Shlach no bi'at tishlach." Please send with the one that you're going to send, meaning Pinchas. Targum Yonasan says that. And the Radal says an interesting idea. The Radal says it's murumas in the pasuk. Shlach no bi'at tishlach. It says no. The word no, which means please or now, is a remez, is a hint to Pinchas. How so? It's very gishmak. This is based on a Zohar in the beginning of Parshas Pinchas, I believe. The pasuk says, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron a Kohen. Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron the Kohen. Yeah? The shaila is, why does it give 3 generations? Usually it just says, it should say Pinchas ben Elazar. Why does it say Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron a Kohen? So the Zohar says that when Pinchas went to go kill Zimri, so all the people from Shevet Shimon came and started beating him up. And his neshama left his body, and the neshamas of Nadav and Avihu came into his body, and therefore he's called Pinchas ben Elazar, because he's Pinchas ben Elazar, that's who he is, and he's also ben Aaron HaKohen, because the neshamas of Nadav and Avihu went into his body. So Nun Aleph, No, is Rosh Tevis, Nadav and Avihu. So it says, Shlach no bi'at tishlach. Don't send me to Paro, rather send the person who will later embody the neshamas of Nadav and Avihu, which is Pinchas. This is what the Radal's pshat. Then the Radal writes. You want me to repeat it or?
When did they go and hit? When did Pinchas' neshama leave?
But when Pinchas went to kill Zimri, and the Shevet Shimon came and they started beating him up, so his neshama he died or his neshama left him because he was scared or whatever, and then the neshamas of Nadav and Avihu went into his body.
And then what? Then he killed Zimri?
No, and then after he killed him. I think after he killed him. Yeah.
I think it was like a.
By the way, there was an interesting part. I once said this by Shava Brachas. That you ever heard such a thing? Two neshamas in one body. Two neshamas in one body. How does that work? So the Stifsei Kohen, which is Rav Mordechai HaKohen of Tzfas, so one of the Talmidim of the Arizal. So he writes, I believe it's over there in Parshas Pinchas. He says that the pshat is that an unmarried person is only half a neshama. Nadav and Avihu never got married, so they're only the neshama of Nadav and the neshama of Avihu are only half neshamas. So two halves make a whole. So it wasn't like two neshamas in one body. It was two half neshamas in one body. Yeah, they never got married. So that's what Radal says that's like it's merumas in the word shlach no biad tishlach no is Nadav and Avihu. He's saying send Pinchas whose body is going to host the neshamas of Nadav and Avihu. Send him to go speak to Paro. That's what the Radal says. The Radal writes that afterwards he saw this in the Sefer Megala Mukhes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Sefer Megala Mukhes. So Megala Mukhes, Oifan Kuf Yudalef. Megala Mukhes, his name was Nosson Nata Shapira. He was the Rav of Krakow before the Bach. He was the Rav right before the Bach in Krakow. And he wrote a sefer called Megala Mukhes. Megala Mukhes is a Kabbalah sefer, somewhat based on Kabbalah of the Arizal, but also based on Ashkenazi Kabbalah, which predates the Arizal. And he lived more or less in the time of the Arizal, maybe a few years after, but he lived more or less the same time as the Arizal. Megala Mukhes, where his sefer Megala Mukhes is on Parshas V'eschanan, this week's parsha. It's on this week's parsha. It's 252 explanations of the beginning of this week's parsha. It is Oifan Aleph, Oifan Beis, Oifan whatever. 252 explanations, and in explanation 111, he says this part. The Radal says that I saw that in Megala Mukhes. He says this part about no being Maramis and Nadav and Avihu based on that Zer. He says that the Megala Mukhes writes this in explanation 111 of Parshas V'eschanan. There's an interesting story. There's a lot of interesting stories they say about the Megala Mukhes. There's an interesting story they say about the Megala Mukhes that really he wanted to write 1,000 or 1,001 explanations of, not 1,001 Arabian Nights, no, 1,000 explanations of Parshas V'eschanan, but Hashem came to him in a dream, and Hashem said to him, "Vayemer Hashem Eloi Rav Loch Al Toisef Daber Elai Oid B'Davar Zeh." The opening words of Parshas V'eschanan, where Moshe ben davens to Hashem that he wants to go into Exile, and Hashem says, "Rav Loch, it's enough for you. Al Toisef Daber Elai Oid B'Davar." Don't continue. Hashem said to the Megala Mukhes in a dream, "Rav Loch, it's enough for you." Rav Loch is Gematria 252. So Rav Loch, that's enough. 252 explanations of Parshas V'eschanan, that's enough. Don't do any more. And Hitaka died not long afterwards. When did he die? Yud Gimel Av. The Ziyar said is tomorrow. Yud Gimel Av, if you don't realize, always falls out during the week of Parshas Shabbos V'eschanan. That's amazing, isn't that amazing? There's a few things like that. Like I found two svarim that talk about what's the meaning of Yom HaMiyuchas. There's a special day called Yom HaMiyuchas, and both of those svarim, the Mechaber died on Yom HaMiyuchas. I found the Noam Elimelech has a shtickle on every single parsha in Chumash, except for Parshas Vayakel. He died on Chaf Aleph Adar, which almost every year is Parshas Vayakel. There's like a few things like very spooky things like that. With the Sefer corresponds to the calendar corresponding to the Mechaber. Anyway, so Hashem says to Moshe says to Hashem, "Don't send me, send Pinchas." Amaloi, Hashem said to him, Lo yamarti lecha ve'eshlachacha el Yisrael. Hashem said, I didn't say go and I'm going to send you to Klal Yisrael. Lecha ve'eshlachacha el Paro. Rather I said go and I'm going to send you to Paro. But that person that you said I should send with, that you said I should send him, that person, I'm not going to send him to the king. I'm not going to send him to Paro. I'm going to send him to Klal Yisrael. You, I'm not sending to Klal Yisrael. You, I'm sending to Paro. Because it says in the pasuk when it's talking about that Hashem is going to send Eliyahu Hanavi in the future, it says, "Hine nechei sheleach lachem es Eliyahu Hanavi." Behold, I am sending to you as Eliyahu Hanavi, the man Eliyahu the Navi, meaning Eliyahu Hanavi lifnei ba Yom Hashem, before Hashem comes. This is the last pasuk, second to last pasuk, the last pasuk of Nevi'im. Right, Chag is Zachariah Malachi, and Malachi is the last Navi. This is the last Nevuah is that Eliyahu Hanavi is Hashem is gonna send Eliyahu Hanavi to come redeem Klal Yisrael. But okay, let's just back to what we're saying. Hashem says to Moshe says to Hashem, don't send me, send Pinchas, send Eliyahu Hanavi. And Hashem says, no, there's a difference between when I'm sending you and I'm sending Eliyahu Hanavi. When I'm saying you go to Paro, and Paro is going to let the Jews out. When I send Eliyahu Hanavi, when I send Pinchas, it's not going to be to a king. It's going to be to Klal Yisrael themselves. When Eliyahu Hanavi comes, he's not going to go to like not George Bush, what's his name? Obama. He's not going to go to Obama and say, okay, Obama, release the Jews, Mashiach is coming. No, that's not how it's going to happen. Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come to Bnei Yisrael and announce to Bnei Yisrael, okay, Mashiach is coming. Now you are released from everyone else. We're going to be released on our own. We're not going to have to go to a king. Eliyahu Hanavi doesn't have to speak to a king to tell the king to release us. And that's the difference between the shlichus of Moshe Rabbeinu, where Moshe Rabbeinu has to speak to a king to release us, and the shlichus of Eliyahu Hanavi, where Klal Yisrael on their own, they're going to have either a high darga of tshuva, or Hashem is going to already free us from Shibud Malchus before Mashiach comes. So Eliyahu Hanavi is not going to speak to a king; he's going to speak to the Jews themselves. So Eliyahu Hanavi says this pshat. Okay. Okay, let's go back there. Omar l'fanav Rebbein Kol Elamim. Moshe Rabbeinu said to him, Master of the universes, Tein li moifes v'ais. Give me a sign and a sign. Moifes and a wonder and a sign. Right? Omar loi hashech es matche artzlo. So give me a sign that I can show Paro that we mean business. So Hashem said to him, send your stick to the ground. V'hishach es matehu artzlo. Moshe Rabbeinu threw his stick to the ground. V'nasa nachash saraf, and his stick turned into a poisonous snake. Why did Hashem show Moshe Rabbeinu that the stick could turn into a poisonous snake? And he didn't show him that the stick could turn into something else. Rather, the reason why Hashem made the stick turn specifically into a snake is just because, just like a snake can bites and kills people, so or Va'amai and Paro the Mitzrayim, Paro and the Egyptians would bite and kill members of Bnei Yisrael. They were killing people. And then the stick went back and became like a dry. The snake went back and became like a dry stick. It became a stick again. Go send forth your hand and grab the tail, and then he took the tail and it turned back into a stick. Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, Master of the universes, tenli moifes, give me a wonder. You just asked for a wonder. You asked for before you asked for a sign and a wonder. Here he's just asking for a wonder. So the Marzu says that here he's saying, give me something else besides just the stick. Maybe because like Rabbi Pomeran said, they'll say, the stick is just a magic stick. But give me something else that they can do besides the stick that could also show them. The Radal says a different nukuda. He says that, how do I know that? How can I show Paro that I'm the guy to take the Jews out of Israel? How can I show him that my body is the one? I'm the person that's supposed to lead them. Maybe he'll say, "Yeah, you're not really the guy. Hashem sent you, but we'll wait for the real leader to come." How do I know? How can I show that I have that ability? So Hashem said to him, "Take now your hand and put it inside your chest, inside, I guess, like in your shirt." The heavy Yoda b'chekei, and Moshe Rabbeinu took his hand and put it in his chest. V'yitzia mitzaras, and he took out his hand, and it was afflicted with leprosy. V'lama hera kadosh baruch hu l'Moshe b'davar tamei es paroi. Why did Hashem show Paro a sign with a davar tamei, with an impure thing, right? Because tzaras is tamei. V'lo hero b'davar tahar, and why didn't Hashem show him a sign, show Paro a sign with something that's tahar? Ella, rather the reason is maha mitzara zet tamei mitame, just like a mitzara is impure and he can make other things impure. Kach hayu paroi v'amai or kach hayu hamitzrim. So too Paro and his nation, or so too the Egyptians were tmein u'mitamei Israel. They were impure and they were making impure the Jews because they did avodah zarah and they were teaching the Jews as well about how to do avodah zarah and they were influencing them for the bad. And then he put his hand back, and it became tohar. It became cleansed from that saras. Shinamar, the Radal adds the word shinamar. Because it says in the pasuk, "Vayomer Hashem yadcha b'cheikecha." You should return your hand into your chest, and then it was tar. Vayomer havena yadcha b'cheikecha. Sorry, instead of havena, it says hashe. It should say hashe yadcha. Right. Fine. Now we're going back to the idea of the snap, and with this idea, sort of the Medrash is going to end off the parak. Ella, okay, another question. Lama hera kadosh baruch hu l'Moshe eish mitechas snap. Why did Hashem show Moshe Rabbeinu the vision of the fire inside the bush? What shaykhs fire and bush? What's the relationship between a fire and a bush? So, in a way, this is sort of like a raya, a proof, not like the explanation of Yom Yisro that we said before, that has to do with the two types of Teresh, Al-Peh, Teresh, V'chsav, because this is going to take a slightly different approach. Ela Eish Yisro, the fire represents Klal Yisrael, or it represents the Tzadikim, Shinim Shilu Eish, who are compared to the fire. Shinem says the Pasuk, V'aya Beis Yaakov Eish. The house of Jacob is going to be like a fire. Vasna and the bush, Elo Harishoyim, Shinim Shilka Kaitiv V'chadar Dorim. The snab is represents the Rishoyim, because the Rishoyim are compared to thorns and thistles. Omar Loi Kach Yiyu Yisrael.
I don't have Rishoyim.
You have?
I have either
Ha'amim, Umas Olam,
or
Ha'amim,
Mitzrim.
Hamitzrim. Okay, so there's alternate versions of I have both Gersas over here. Right, so there's either the Medrash over here is expressing a dynamic between Bnei Yisrael and Mitzrayim, or between Bnei Yisrael and Amim, or between Tzadikim and Rishoyim. There's different Gersas, but it plays out the same way. Right, so Yisrael and Tzadikim are like fire, Rishoyim and Mitzrayim or Umas Ha'olam are like thorns and thistles. This is how it's going to be. Klal Yisrael inside the Rishoyim, Klal Yisrael are going to be living amongst the Goyim, or the Tzadikim are going to be living amongst the Rishoyim. The fire of Bnei Yisrael, or the fire of the Tzadikim, is not going to eat up or consume the Rishoyim who are like thorns and thistles. Or the thorns and thistles, meaning the Rishoyim, are not going to extinguish the flame of Klal Yisrael, or the flame of the Tzadikim. Shehein divrei Torah yiras Hashem u'maisim tovim, because the fire of Klal Yisrael is divrei Torah yiras Hashem maisim tovim. The Rishoyim are not going to be able to extinguish that fire, but on the other hand, the fire is not going to be able to consume and overtake those Rishoyim. At least in this world. But in the future, the fire of Klal Yisrael will overpower, will consume all the Rishoyim, or all the nations of the world, who are compared to thorns and thistles. The nations are going to be burnt like sid is plaster. Okay, fine. So that's that trush. Now the last thing that Moshe Rabbeinu asked Hashem before he was sent out to go speak to Paro. Omar Moshe lefnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu said in front of Kadosh Baruch Hu, "Rebbein kol ha'olam, Master of the universes, Hoidieni shimcha hagadol v'hakodesh she'ekra lecha b'shimcha v'saneni." Hashem, please tell me your great and holy name, so that I'll be able to call you in your name and you will answer me. And the Radha brings a medrash that says that medrash Seicher Tov. It says, why is it the Klal Yisrael call out to Hashem and they ask and they daven and Hashem doesn't heed to their prayers? The answer is because they don't know the name of Hashem. They don't really know the Shem Mefarish of Hashem. So Moshe Rabbeinu, before he leaves, is asking Hashem, please Hashem, tell me, what's your name? What's the name that I could refer to when I want to daven to, when I want to appeal to? And Hashem told him, informed Moshe Rabbeinu of his name. Hashem says the pasuk, Vayomer Elikim el Moshe. Hashem said to Moshe, Ahaya Asher Ahaya, I will be that which I will be. And that's the name. That the lashon of the pasuk is Hashem said, Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, what if they ask me who sent you? What should I tell them? So he said, what's your name? So he said, Ahaya Asher Ahaya, I will be that which I will be, which is the name of Hashem. That's him. And Hashem said, tell Bnei Yisrael, Ahaya Shalchani Aleichem. This name, Ahaya, that I will be, that's who sent me. Also Hashem said further to Moshe, he said to him, he revealed to him Shem Hashem of Yud Kei Vav Kei, and it says Zeh Shemi Lo'olam v'Zeh Zechri L'Dor Vador or Dor L'Dor, I don't remember. That's the name of it, everlasting name of Hashem, Zeh Shemi Lo'olam, which we say is La'elam because it's not supposed to be pronounced, it's supposed to be hidden. Ne'alam, the name of Hashem is supposed to be hidden, right? So Hashem revealed these two names of himself to Moshe Rabbeinu, the name of Ahaya Asher Ahaya and the name of Havaya. And the Elyonim, the elements of the upper realm, the Malachim or whatever, they saw that HaKadosh Baruch Hu passed over to Moshe Rabbeinu the secret of the Shem HaMefarish, of the ineffable name of Hashem. As we said, that's a prerequisite for tefillah, in order to be answered in your tefillah. V'anu, and those upper realms, they answered, Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you Hashem, Chonein Hadas, the one who grants knowledge. Meaning, they're saying that they're blessing Hashem for granting that knowledge to Moshe Rabbeinu, and they're saying Chonein Hadas. So if you're keeping score, we had the first three brachas of Shemoneh Esrei. First one is Mogen Avram Keneged Avram Avinu. The second one is B'chayei Mesim Keneged Yitzchak Avinu. Right? Mogen Avram is because Hashem promised Avram that He's going to watch him even when Klal Yisrael is going to be in Golus. B'chayei Mesim is Keneged Yitzchak because Yitzchak died by the Akedah and he came back to life. HaKadosh is talking about Yaakov Avinu because the Kadosh Baruch Hu fulfilled the promise, etc. Now it's at Chonein Hadas. Hashem gave him das. Hashem granted him das. That's talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, that Hashem gave him special das to know this secret name of Hashem. And the Radal points out that this is a specific reason why it's the fourth bracha of Shemoneh Esrei. After you get through the first three brachas, now you get into the bakashas. The fourth bracha is the first of the bakashas, of the requests and supplications that we ask Hashem for things. And the Gemara bracha says, Yerushalmi bracha says that Im ein derya tefillah minayin. If you don't have knowledge, how could you daven? And we said before that in order to daven that Hashem is going to answer you, you have to understand the side of the Shem HaMefarish. You have to understand the side. That's why the Mukubalam are very busy with different kavanas and tefillah, or combinations of name Hashem or whatever, how it all works together. But the point is that it's an important part of the tefillah. In order to get your tefillahs answered, you need to have knowledge. You need to know certain things in order to unlock those keys. So that's why when the second Chonein Hadas is the fourth bracha, the first one of the middle supplications. That's basically the end of the parak. There's one more idea over here, that the Zayas Ranan, which is the Mogen Avram's pirush on the Yalkut Shemaini, when it brings down this medrash, and the Yalkut Shemaini remez Kuf Ayin Aleph in Parsha Shmois, so the Zayas Ranan asks a kasha. It says, what do you mean? In the pasuk it only says that Hashem revealed the Shem of Eyeh, Asher Eyeh. It doesn't say that Hashem revealed him the Shem HaMefarish. It doesn't say Yud Kei Vav Kei. So why is the medrash over here saying that Hashem gave him Soid Shem HaMefarish? So this is two pshatim. The first pshat is that in order to understand the Shem HaMefarish, first you have to understand the name of Ehiyah or Ehekah, whatever some people call it Ehekah. I think you're allowed to say Ehiyah. I don't think you have to say Ehekah, but I'm not sure. Now that I'm saying, I'm not sure. So everything that I said retroactively, let's change it to Ehekah. Yeah. So he said, in order to understand the Shem HaMefarish, you have to understand the side of Shem Ehekah. So like both of them go together. The other pshat, the Zayis Ranan says, B'Shem that was B'Shem the Rizal, It says in order to understand the Shem first, you have to understand Shem Ekeh. Second pshat is Zayis Ranan says is that in some places we find a Rashi in Sanhedrin, Daf Samech, Daf Kuf Aleph, other places it sounds like Shem Mefarish could sometimes refer to not the name of Yud Vavke, but could refer to the name of Hashem, of the 42-letter name of Hashem. Now, the 42-letter name of Hashem, says the Zayis Ranan, is built on the Shem Hashem of Ehekeh, because Ehekeh is Gematria 21, and 21 double is 42. So to get to the 42 letter of Hashem, the Shem Mefarish of the 42 letters, you need to first understand Ehekeh. So that's why it sounds like he's just revealing Ehekeh, but really he's also revealing the side of the Shem Mefarish.